Alright, y'all, this is called Geometry Support for 9.5. So number 1 wants me to multiply and simplify. So I got x to the squared times x to the negative fourth. So since I'm multiplying x's times x's, I'm going to bring down the x, and then I'm going to add the exponents. So when you multiply variables times themselves, you add the exponents. Well, 2 plus negative 4 gives me a negative 2. So we're not able to leave answers as negative exponents. So to make a negative exponent positive, we either move it down or up. So what I mean by that, if it's up and negative, we put it under a 1 and make the exponent positive. If it's on the bottom and negative, we move it to the top and make it positive. So you basically move the negative variable or the negative exponent down or up to change its sign. So since that 2 is negative, we're going to put that under a 1 and make the 2 positive. Final answer. Alright, number 2, we're going to multiply a to the negative 4 times a to the 7th times a to the 7th. So once again, I'm multiplying these a's. So I'm going to bring the a down, and then I'm going to add all 3 of these exponents. So negative 4 plus 7 is 3. 3 plus 7 is 10. So I get a to the 10th. Final answer. Alright, number 3, I got 2y to the 4th times 3y to the 3rd. So the first thing I would do is write a 1 by the 2 in the y and a 1 by the 3 in the y. Because if there's not an exponent shown, we got to treat it like a 1. So since we can't do nothing inside the parentheses, we got to distribute the exponents on the outside times the exponents on the inside. So this one will give me 2. 1 times 4 is 4. And on the y, 1 times 4 is 4. On the 3, 1 times 3 is 3, so I get 3 to the 3rd. On the y, 1 times 3 is 3, so I get y to the 3rd. So what I would do next is figure out what the numbers actually equal. So 2 to the 4th, 2 exponent 4 equals 16, so you got 16y to the 4th. 3 exponent 3 equals 27, so you got 27y to the 3rd. Now, multiply the numbers, so 16 times 27 equals 432. And when you multiply the y times the y, you're going to add those exponents. So that's going to give you y. 4 plus 3 is 7. Final answer. Alright, number 4, I got 13 u to the 9th, n to the 8th, times negative 7 u to the 8th, n to the 3rd. Alright, so cannot do nothing inside the parentheses. There's no exponents to distribute. So we're going to start by multiplying. So 13 times negative 7 is going to equal a negative 91. U9 times U8, we add that 9 and 8 together, so we get U17. And on the n to the 8th times n to the 3rd, I add that 8 plus 3 and get n to the 11th. Alright, let's see. Number 5, I can write right here. Same thing, I got negative 4x to the negative 4th times 7x to the negative 6th. Alright, so no exponents on the outside, nothing you can do on the inside, so we're going to start multiplying. So negative 4 times 7 is a negative 28. X to the negative 4 times x to the negative 6. Negative 4 gets added to the negative 6 to make a negative 10. Now remember, I cannot keep negative exponents, so this part here with the negative exponent has to move to the bottom. Not the number. The number can stay negative and stay where it's at. So all we got to do is move that. So I'm going to make that a negative 28 over x to the positive 10. So the only thing you could move was the x to the negative 10. Because remember, the negative 28 still has a positive 1 exponent by it, so it had to stay on top. Alright, number 6 is the same thing. I got 14 y to the negative 9t times 30 y to the negative 8t. Alright, so nothing I can do nowhere but start multiplying. So 14 times 30 is going to give me, looks like 420. And on the y, I'm going to add the negative 9t to the negative 8t. So negative 9 plus negative 8 makes that a negative 17t. So remember, I can't change the t because I'm not multiplying the t. Technically, I'm adding. And when you add like terms, you keep the variable the same. Now, since the y has a negative exponent, I'm going to keep the 420 on top and move the y to the bottom and make that a positive 17t. Alright, now we're happy because the exponents are positive, okay? Alright, number 7 is divide and simplify. So I got a d squared over a d to the negative third. So remember, what this really means, since it's a variable dividing by itself, is 2 minus that negative 3. Okay, when you subtract a negative from the bottom, it's actually going to become a positive, and 2 plus 3 gives me d to the 5th. Okay, now, other ways you can do this, you can do the d squared over d to the third, and it was a negative 3 down there. So since it's a negative 3, we can move the d to the negative 3 up and make that a d squared times a d to the third. And in that case, you would add the exponents, and 2 plus 3 still gives me a d to the 5th. So, either way on that, subtract them, then add them, or make that exponent positive, and then, since you're multiplying, add the exponents that way. Either answer will give me d to the 5th. Alright, so turning over for number 8. Same thing, divide and multiply. So I got 15 x to the 7th, z to the 7th, divided by a negative 3 x to the 5th, z. So the first thing, the z has a 1 exponent by it. So now we're going to divide the numbers. So 15 divided by negative 3 is a negative 5. On the variables, we're going to subtract those exponents. So on the x, you got 7 minus 5 is 2. On the z, you got 7 minus 1 is 6. So since all these exponents were bigger on top, your answers will all stay positive, okay? Alright, moving on to number 9. Let me turn my page here. Alright, so this one says simplify, write with positive exponents only. So I got 3 to the x third y, all to the 4th. So we're going to use the power rule on this one. So put a 1 by the y and the 3 there because they don't have exponents. In the power rule, you take the exponent on the outside and multiply by all the exponents on the inside. So you get 3, 1 times 4 is 4, x, 3 times 4 is 12, y, 1 times 4 is 4. Now, the only thing I can do to this is figure out what that 3 to the 4th power is going to give me. So that's going to give me 81, and then x 12, y 4 stays the same. Alright, 10, here we go, negative 7, x to the negative 2nd, y to the 5th, z, all times to the negative 3rd power. So, let's see, the 7 didn't have an exponent and the z. So let's bring this down. We're going to distribute negative 3 times every exponent. So negative 7, 1 times negative 3 is a negative 3. On the x, negative 2 times negative 3 is a 6. On the y, 5 times negative 3 is a negative 15. And on the z, 1 times negative 3 is a negative 3. Alright, so if it's got a negative exponent, I'm going to put it on the bottom. So the x to the 6 is the only thing with a positive exponent. So it's the only thing staying on top. The negative 7 moves to the bottom, and the exponent becomes positive. The y moves to the bottom, and the exponent becomes positive. The z moves to the bottom, and the exponent becomes positive. So the only thing we can do now is figure out what this part equals. So we got x to the 6 over negative 7 to the third power is going to equal a negative 343. Now, I will say this. Had that been an even exponent, I would have put my negative 7 in parentheses like this, and then would have done my exponent and got that answer, okay? All right, then the y15 stays the same, and a z to the third. Okay? All right, now there's no more negative exponents. The number can be negative, remember, but not the exponents. All right, so let me bring up number 11 up here. Ooh, this one's a big one. 3u to the 5th, v to the negative 5th, over 4v to the negative 6th. And y'all, all of this is raised to the second power. So let's see, the 3 don't have a 1 by it, and the 4 don't have an exponent. So the first thing I'm going to do is distribute that 2 to all of the exponents, so that I get 3 on top. 1 times 2 is 2. U, 5 times 2 is 10. V, negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. Over 4, 1 times 2 is 2. And V, negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. Now watch this. I don't have to worry about these because they got positive exponents. The U has a positive exponents, but these V's have negative exponents. So I'm just going to rearrange those two. I'm going to bring the negative 12 up top and make it positive. On bottom, I still got my 4 squared. Now, since I moved that one up, I'm going to move the negative 10 down and make it positive. All right, so let's see what's going to happen here. 3 squared will give you 9. U10 stays. There's nothing on bottom to cancel with it. Now, the V12 over the V10, 12 minus 10 will leave you a V squared. And then on the bottom, since we took care of the V10, all that's left is the 4 squared, which gives me 16. Alright, y'all, number 12 is another big one. Negative 6 to the 5th. U to the 6th, V to the negative 3rd, over 5 to the negative 6, U to the negative 3rd, V to the 4th, all of this to the second power. Now this one don't want me to evaluate it because these numbers would be so big with these big exponents. So what I'm going to do is distribute the exponent to everybody inside first. And everybody had an exponent this time, so I get negative 6. 5 times 2 is 10. U, 6 times 2 is 12. V, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Over 5, negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. U, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. And V, 4 times 2 is 8. So if they got negative exponents, I'm moving them. Notice that 10 is positive, so that exponent is going to stay, so I get negative 6 to the 10th. I'm going to move this number up because, look, that's a negative 12, so that 5 goes up, and the 12 gets positive. Right here, you're taking 12 minus negative 6, which is like 12 plus 6. And 12 plus 6 is 18. And then watch right here, you got negative 6 minus 8, which is a negative 14. So, let's see where we got negative exponents. That one's positive, that's positive, that's positive, that's negative. So that one has to move to the bottom. So I get negative 6 to the 10, 5 to the 12, U to the 18th, all over V to the positive 14th. Okay, so remember, your last step, and they said don't evaluate this, because y'all, that would have been a big number if I tried to multiply that out, okay? Alrighty, let's see. Looks like we got about 2 more to go. So number 13. Simplify by removing factors of 1. So basically, they want us to factor and cancel anything that's common. R squared minus 25 over R squared minus 10t plus 25. Alright, so there's a 0 in the middle, so to factor that, we get an R and an R. That 25 is negative, so you got a positive and a negative. Since there's no R in the middle, that's 0. So I want factors of 25 that subtract to get to 0, which will be 5 and 5. Alright, on the bottom, that's going to factor into parentheses. R squared is R and R. The last sign's positive, so both of the factors will be negative like the middle. Factors of 25 that add to get 10 are 5 and 5. So now I can cancel any of the factors on top with any of the factors on bottom. So I'm going to cancel out the R minus 5s on top and bottom. So that's like removing a factor of 1 because R minus 5 divided by R minus 5 is 1. So that this side you cannot cancel, so you get an R plus 5 over R minus 5. Alright, y'all, the same thing on number 14. Simplify by removing factors of 1. X squared minus 8x plus 7 divided by x squared plus 3x minus 4. So both of these will factor. So x squared is an x and an x. That's positive, so both signs are negative like the middle. And the factors of 7 that equal 8, you only got one guess, 7 and 1. On the bottom, that's the x squared, so that's an x and an x. This one's negative, which means one factor is positive, one factor is negative. The larger factor will be positive like the middle. So factors of 4 that subtract to get 3 are 4 and 1. Larger sign's positive, smaller sign's negative. Actually, if you got these signs wrong, nothing would cancel, right? Because see, I'm going to cancel out the factors of 1, which are x minus 1 over x minus 1, so that my final answer will be x minus 7 over x plus 4. Alright, y'all, so that was that lesson for 9.5, I think it was. Yes, 9.5, so good luck.